minor children, and for people like me, guardianship of pets. Now, before we get into the law, I want you to look at three scenarios. The first one, imagine you are an accomplished professional with a significant financial portfolio, excellent savings, insurance policies, real estate, luxury cars. You have no children, but you're prudent enough to have a will. Years later, you found love and you got yourself married. Life was good for a short period, but then you get sick. And within 1 year of your diagnosis, you die. You leave your husband and a wife to grieve for you. Our second scenario, you are a retired mom. All your children are adults. You have joy spending time with your grandchildren and your family. Your husband worked and you manage the family finances. All of the family money is solely in your name at accounts in the bank. You die suddenly without warning. Scenario 3. Imagine you are a part of a young couple, 2 children under 5. You just took out a mortgage for your dream home where your children can grow up and you can grow old. A life filled with promise. One morning on your way to work, you get into an accident and you die immediately. You'll realize that is a running theme here. 2 babies are alive to mourn your loss. In each case, death was never a topic of conversation. Just like you, each person lived expecting to wake up tomorrow. Now we're going to get into the law. Estate planning is to put your house in order before you transition to glory. Now, the first stages of estate planning is what you should consider. What do I own? Who do I give my earthly possessions to? How do I give my possessions to the persons that I've chosen? Let me know if I'm going too fast. Okay, now the short answer to what do I own is your estate, right? Estate in estate planning means all the property, furniture, jewelry, insurance policies, silverware, tools, equipments, pets, and minor children that you personally own in your lifetime. So take time to write down all the possessions that you think that you own and that forms a part of your estate. Question 2, who do I give my earthly possessions to? The short answer again is your beneficiaries. Your beneficiaries are persons who you want to give your stuff to. It's just a fancy word. So whoever you determine, like your aunts, your uncles, your spouse, a church, charitable organization, take time to consider who you wish to leave your stuff. And question 3, how do I give my possessions to the persons that I've chosen? One answer is in a will. Now, as a legal counsel, I always advise you to have a conversation with a lawyer as to what you think you own and who you can give it to. And parents of young children, it is always important to consider what happens to your children if you happen to die before they are 18 years old. Now we are on the will. Now, we don't know who we're giving everything to. We know what we have. We know who we're going to give it to. Now we know one of the options in which we could give them to is a will, right? So now, in order for your will to be valid, first of all, you must be 18 years old. I would love for these slides to work. There we go. The will must be written. So I know a lot of people like to have things in their head. Your will must be written. And it must be signed by the maker of the will in the presence of two witnesses. The will maker must have testamentary capacity. Now that is just a really fancy word to say that you must be of sound mind. You must have good mental health. Now don't be going up by the hospital with no will and make Tanti sign the will and you know very well that she don't even know up from down. So that is very, very important. The maker of the will must know and approve the contents of the will. So I told you go and get legal advice. When you go in, you're saying this is what I have, this is what I'm going to put in the will. You must make sure, reread it once you get it back before you go in signing your life away. You must know the contents of your will because you are the one to approve it. And of course, you must have free choice. So nobody, just like I say, you're going up with this paper by Tanti in the hospital, you know she going on there tomorrow, and you're saying, oh, sign here because you know you want the piece of land when you know very well she had no intention whatsoever of giving you that piece of land. So you, as the will maker, you must have that knowledge because anyhow, you didn't agree to that or there was some undue influence, then it's a fraudulent will and you can't do anything with it. So I'm telling you this now. So don't wait till you reach up in the hospital and everybody telling you come sign here. All right? It is important to note that any one of these requirements that are not present in your will it will be invalid. So these things are very important for you to know when you're making your will. You must have sound mind. You must, your will must be in writing. It must be signed by you in the presence of two other witnesses. You must know and approve of the details of the will, and like I say, you are the one making all the choices in relation to who you're going to give, what you're going to give. So remember scenario one when we talked about that professional who was very prudent and she would have already had a will? She had her will before she got married. Now, it is important to understand that if you're married, after you have a will, then everything within that will that you had from before will be invalidated. We will get to that later. Now, once we have our will again, look at this scenario with the young couple. This is so very important when I say you know what you have, and I said I'm going to make provisions for my dogs. Parents of young children, you can make provisions in your will for your children. Who is going to be the proper legal guardian to take care of them, to preserve your assets in care for them until they are 18 years old and they can take care of themselves. Now, it sounds very light, you know, everybody on a Sunday, godparents, I see like 10,000 godparents coming up, and this is legal matters. The real role of a godparent is that in the event of incapacitation or death of that person, they are supposed to immediately step into that role. Now, you are having your assets, you have everything else. You need to make sure that you name somebody in that will who you know will be responsible to take care of your children and manage the assets that you leave behind for them. So a lot of trust is in this scenario here, right? Now, a will should be properly stored. Where would you store your will? You store your will in a safe place. You will store your will with a lawyer. You will leave it at a bank. You will get a safety deposit box. You will store it in a safe place at home. Now, the main thing is that, yes, you're putting away this will, but the persons who would need to do things within the will on your behalf, who you've been designated, they must know where this will is. Right? So you're putting it in a safe place, but you're also putting it in an accessible place. Now, Caribbean people, do not put the will under your bed. Do not put it in a closet, and you there, you living all 93, you still alive, and you lying down on this will. So by the time you pass, you can't read what the will say, what by the will. Oh, no. in a safe place. Now, I know a lot of people saying, oh, why am I having a will now? I am only so young and whatever. Yes, you need a will. As long as you have some type of property, you have car, house, land, you need a will, right? But the good news is that you could change your will at any given time. You could wake up one morning and say, I don't want this in my will again, I want that. Or I acquired more assets, let me put this. Or, I fall out so bad with my cousin. She's not going to get that China way. So you have that option. You have that option to keep changing and updating your will as you go along. Right? And then again, remember I touched on the married woman who would have had the professional and you have everything going for you and you left stuff for your mom. Again, I say marriage automatically revokes a will. So now, a prior will. You get married today and you had your will from before, you and your husband need to have a conversation. Because it's time for you to have a new will. Because you are incorporating this life partner, which is a whole wonderful contract filled with so many different responsibilities. So our professional in scenario 1, all of her estate belongs to her husband. So her mother now, if her mother was living in a property that she would have provided for, she better hope she's on best terms with her son-in-law. So these are things that you think of because, this is a part of your plan. You say, oh, I want to take care of this person. I want to make sure that is okay. This is your responsibility to make sure that this is done. And always have constant conversations with your lawyer because you don't know what will change for you. And the lawyer is not going to know what will change for you. So don't write the one will in 1973 and then you go on about your business. And so much has happened after the fact. And when it's time to probate your estate, we look and we only have a page that does absolutely nothing for you, your estate, or your family. So it's always good to reassess and think about your life like that. Okay, now the flip side to not having a will, it means that you die intestate. Intestate is just a fancy word to say that you don't have a will. So, you decided, or as luck would have it, you didn't wake up tomorrow. And then what will happen is now that the laws of succession of whatever jurisdiction that you live in and you have all your worldly possessions, that is the law that is going to determine how your assets are going to be distributed. So let me give you an example. A husband and wife, one of the spouses die, the surviving spouse is entitled to inherit. You have a situation where you have a child, so then the child will inherit if you were not married. Then if you did not have any children, you were never married, your parents are in line to inherit. You ain't had none of them things, then all your brothers and sisters could get picked. So this is how the order will fall. So if you know you vexed with your sister since whenever, just know that because you don't have a will and everybody else it passed, she's the one who's going to inherit your stuff. So you don't want that to happen, make that arrangement. So now there's another critical aspect about estate planning. And this is what happens to my body immediately after I die. Now, death in whatever form it comes is inevitable. So, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want your body to be embalmed and put on display? Whatever it is, we need to know. And one of these, this is so important, whatever your desire in terms of how you want to dispose of your body, it must or it could be a part of the will. But just let people know, please. Now, I say that you could put it in the will, and I say that with caution. Because, again, we go back to the point that your will, people must have knowledge of and access to your will upon your death. So imagine 3 weeks after you die, your family find your will. Now, and they read in it to say, oh, I want to be cremated, and I want my ashes scattered in the Caribbean Sea. Now, this is after they bury you in Greenland Cemetery next to your cousin. So please let people know. Now, the next thing that is so very important. So, all right, you decide this is how I want to dispose of my body. You must have money. And not just money, but you must have accessible money that is required for your funeral, your cremation, the repast, the death announcements, the flyers, all the fancy things you like when you want to die, because funeral is a production. So the persons charged with hosting your death celebration should not have to be burdened by exorbitant costs to do that. This is your responsibility. And imagine, you have all this money, but your money in a vault. You remember a scenario too, where you had a retired mom who did all of the banking for her family. Now, as soon as you die, no one, and I mean no one, has access to your money in the bank. So whether you have $100,000, $100 million, you have $0 because it's not accessible. So now your family have to go and find money, and you know very well nobody have no money in the family. So we have to pick up money in collection to bury you because you did not make any proper arrangements for somebody to have access to some money in order for you to be buried. Go cremated, however you want to go. So note, please always have some funeral money set aside. Aww. Now I leave you with the story of Miss Mammy. That is the little old lady in the middle there. Now, Miss Mammy is my great-grandmother. Now the community called her Miss Mammy. Don't ask for her proper name, she will never give it to you. She'd just call her Miss Mammy. So as a young child, when I was growing up, my great-grandmother would always pay $5 to society for her funeral expenses. Now, please don't ask me who society is, but she would pay $5 a month for her funeral expenses to society. In her lifetime, she owned a funeral plot right next to her husband in the cemetery. So much so that every All Saints, she will go and have it cleaned up, and she will go and light candles because she know where she going and bury. Each generation of her family, you see her outfit? Each generation of her family knew that she wanted to be in a belt in her coffin. She always wanted to show off her fabulous waistline. So she will be telling everybody she's wearing a belt to go outside. She's wearing a belt with her house dress. She always wanted everybody to know that her waist was kept in check. So therefore, when she bury her with a belt. Now, these are conversations that my great-grandmother would be having, right? So now, I'm telling you these stories, but as a great-grandchild, look at the generation where I am. I was witnessing my great-grandmother estate planning. So she didn't go to a lawyer, she didn't do everything, but she already had money for her funeral arrangements. She was paying society, so she know for sure society going and organize this funeral. Then she already had a plot, so she know exactly where she's going to go next to her husband. She was very specific and said, listen to me, I need a belt, so when you all come in and watching me crying over my coffin, make sure that I look good. All of these things she did for herself. When she was getting older, she gave away all of her jewelry to her family members, save her wedding ring, because that is what she wanted to be buried in. She transferred her house to a grandchild, and she did that during a lifetime. Now, this is not a will, this is inter vivos gifts. That is for when you're ready to ask me questions. Let us tussle. Now, when Miss Mammy passed, we were able to celebrate her life. Instead of being consumed by the weight of her death, there was no mystery in terms of what she wanted because she made all of these arrangements for herself. Death to Miss Mammy and her generation was a natural part of living. If you think I'm young, I have all the time in the world to prepare my will, let this be a reminder to you that you will die, whether it is now or 90 years from now. Take comfort in the fact that you can always change your will as many times as you like. Estate planning should not only be used by the ultra wealthy, it should be for everyone. Redeem the time, preserve your family relationships, and make a plan. You owe it to yourself, your loved ones, to leave a life legacy that would be most impactful with proper planning. Thank you for listening. So any one of you, every one of you who have questions for me about any aspect of what I would have said, please feel free to ask. I would love to talk about your death plan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so I don't have a written plan. I have a mental one. But I heard what you said about actually doing the written aspect. Question.
Yes.
You made mention that if we have a will already and then we get married, then what we would have written previously, it doesn't stand.
At all. Throw it in the garbage.
Okay. So, you make a new will.
Yes.
Let's consider the scenario. You're now married and you have a lot of assets. You have children. You die. The assets will still go to the spouse or to the children?
No, you die with a will or you die without a will?
With a
You
will.
die with, but what did the will say? That is what determines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
whatever you have in your will, because you made that decision, that is how the distribution is going to go.
Okay.
If you die without a will, you are the
Then-
wife or you are the husband, whoever is alive is entitled to inherit. So which means that you will have to go to the court, you will have to file letters of administration without will and next. I'm being complicated. And you're going to say, these are all the assets that my spouse would have had, and therefore all of these things belong to me because I am the rightful person to inherit under the laws of succession.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Okay. You don't have a will. You're married, you have children. You don't have a will. You die. You have a lot of assets. Who would get it? That's the husband, or it is left up to relatives to determine?
So where them relatives and them come from? So you got married. So this is the aspect of it I'm telling you about, this marriage contract. It's not just to hold hands and walk in the park and cry when they die, but you are legally obligated to this person. You are contracted to this person for life. I'm going to walk with you, carry you, so when I'm crying, sniff, sniff, I'm also going to inherit everything that you own.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good
Hi,
night.
Kenya. Excellent
Hi.
presentation.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. The part that you mentioned about the will must be signed in front of two witnesses. Is there a particular criteria for the witnesses, or as long as they're over 18?
Well, as long as they're over 18 and they can write, and let me tell you, when you have your will is written on one paper. You say all who you want to give, whatever you want to give to. Your signature and the witness's signature should be on the same page. It should fall immediately after the will. So don't add 2-3 pages in Tanti will when she didn't say none of that and then sticking the signature after, because that is one of the reasons why a will could be invalidated. So a lot of people just think, oh, you just go and pick 2 random persons. So now the thing is that your witnesses are going to be the ones to say, well, no, this wasn't, we signed from pages 1 to 7. We didn't sign from pages 1 to 59. So, that is something to think about as well. So some people choose to go to a lawyer's office to sign their will, right? So you could use the lawyer's office staff. You could use somebody you know. But again, this is something important that you touched on. Your executor. Now, this is the person that you are charging with the responsibility to administer this estate, all the things that you own in your will. You see, that person, that is the person who needs to know, number one, where the will is, and two, what they're supposed to do going forward. So, you're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, you said I remember about your grandmother.
Yes.
Okay, scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The grandmother always says this granddaughter getting everything.
Yes.
She tells it to all her children, despite the fact she has 8, 9 children. She always says this granddaughter is who I want to get everything.
Yes.
Okay, and so she dies. Do you think that children have to keep what she said?
Well, they should, but they don't have to. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, if she died without a will, it means that she died intestate. So once she dies intestate, then you have to go according to the laws of the succession to see who's entitled to inherit. So by the time they reach down to this granddaughter, she may not even have anything to inherit because you have to look at everybody else in line before her. So just like Miss Mommy, because some people are really apprehensive about going to a lawyer, she would have transferred all of her property before she died. So you see that special granddaughter, it's in that grandmother's best interest. So somebody needs to tell her, if you want me to have this, without all my cousins coming and saying I was the better one when they know they didn't visit Granny for 5 years, then it would be in her best interest to put the grandchild's name on the proper documents, like your title, your land paper, put it as joint tenant. So once Granny passed, it automatically falls to the grandchild. So this doesn't form a part of her estate at all. So when everybody else fighting for the old chair and all the things she have in her house, the grandchild have the land paper because her name is already on it. It does not come in the estate.
One more question, sorry.
Sure.
Okay, if the granddaughter remembers signing a paper, but she never has it, somebody else has it, she doesn't know.
What is it that Granny was leaving?
I went to let's say for me.
That's fine.
I went to the lawyer and signed a document with her.
Yes.
Right, but I've never gotten it. Now that my grandmother passed, everybody's wondering who the house belongs to.
Oh,
but I
then,
remember signing documents in a lawyer's office.
so the house, you have to learn. Remember when I said, what do you own? So the house is held in a title. It's either a deed or it is a certificate of title. You know your granny's name. Maybe you have an idea as to when she would have purchased the land. You take a $5 stamp and you go up to the land's registry and you search, because this is a manual thing in St. Kitts, but you search until you find your granny name and where you have access to that land, and then you will see how she hold it. And then from there, you could trace to see if she transferred it over to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
So I have 2 questions.
Yes.
You mentioned about godparents and guardians.
Yes.
So if you decide to leave a particular person in charge of your children in case you pass,
Yes.
is it limited to one person, or is there like a number you could say?
Absolutely
1,
not.
2, 3.
Well, you're going to put 3 people. You want 3 people. Now, let me think this out. Now, this is me with my lawyer cap on. I have my children. Now, I want my children to have the best care. Out of all the godparents, you must know the one who will take care of that child. Or you must know the couple who you will know will take care of that child.
Yes,
And that,
I understand, but
Mhm.
since we are all subjected to death, in terms of suppose something happened to that
You-
person, so is there an order? Like godparent 1 would be the first preference, and then you would have 2 and 3 in the event that something happens
but
to
that's
one.
your choice, and yes, you can.
So you can, okay. Also, you mentioned about being in consistent communication with your lawyer
Yes.
concerning what you plan to do, but lawyers are subjected to death as well. So what if your lawyer passed? Then what happens to all your
So,
information?
The
and
last time I checked, it had 10 million lawyers in St. Kitts. You could ask any lawyer a question.
No, in terms of when you said that, like, there's a personal relationship eventually, because if you're going to be in constant communication, then there would be things. Okay, for example, there's a parent at my school, and she had a particular situation dealing with, and then right in the middle of it, her lawyer got sick.
Yes.
So she had to travel, and then she gets a message, and it says, I can no longer handle such and such and such, and so you have to go to, she made reference to another lawyer.
Yes.
So in doing that, her stuff now had to get hold of, because now she have to go back over and get all these information, get prints from all these different places. So when you mention about having information in a safety place, which would be maybe at the legal firm or at the bank or whatever, what is the easiest access point in the event something happens to your lawyer?
This is a good point. Now, there's this lawyer in where I'm from, Point Fortin. Her name is Miss Morn. Now, Miss Morn was practicing law all up until she was 80, and for the life of me, I did not understand why everybody keep on going by Miss Morn. Well, Miss Morn died. So once you die now, who is going to, now your practice is with you, depending on how you have your practice. If you're a sole practitioner like most people, then you will have to find some family member to go in this and maybe connect with another lawyer to transfer all this stuff, which is what happened in that case. They transferred it to another lawyer. So now imagine this lawyer going through all this volume of stuff to find yours. So when you're having your will and you're storing it in a safe place, your lawyer have a copy, not the copy. So you have it in a safety deposit box, you have it somewhere safe at home, copies. So you can make as much copies of your will as you want. So yes, a lawyer is a safe place. A lot of people who travel a lot and stuff prefer to leave it with a law firm. Some people prefer to leave it in a bank. Look at the case where the bank was changed recently. So, but you still have to have your copy of the will.
Okay. So final question.
Mhm.
Okay, for Caribbean people, well, St. Kitts is a small place,
Yes.
and we tend to know each other.
Yes.
Whether it's close, far, we tend to know each other. And so you find information that is supposed to be confidential, it's all over the place,
Yeah.
because this person going to tell their cousin and that type of thing, although they have sworn to secrecy and confidentiality. Now, I feel personally that's one of the reasons why local people sort of try to keep things at home or to themselves, because you're easily undermined even in the legal system. And I say that because of experience and certain situations that, I've had the privilege of knowing. And for example, there's a particular property that I know somebody who, they've been dealing with the property for quite some time. And the banker said to the person, there are certain people on the board that they need that property as well. And if they want the property, they can easily undermine you in getting the property. So she's basically like talking about it. It's a bit frustrating and looking for advice. And I have led her to certain lawyers. Maybe I should send her to you.
Because you want me to get all the heat, carry on.
But it's really serious. Like in this society, it's hard when you have the laws are there for you, but then certain people in certain positions tend to undermine your own privilege and your knowledge. And even sometimes it is who you know or who know you, then you get through to some extent. So what happens in a situation where the property belongs to the person, but because there are certain persons on certain boards have a say, basically, she's like
How
not
does
having
she
her
have a say though? If this is my property, well, what is it
There's
in any
more
bank?
information to it, but I don't want to give out her information.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the will, in your same scenario, I said a will must be stored in a safe place, and your arrangements and your desires must be known to your family members or people who are around you, who you want to handle things for you. At no point did I say the contents of the will must be known to everybody else. So you know who you want to leave, whatever you want to leave. You tell them, this is where the will is, and this is where everything is. But and not that I leave this for this person and I leave that for that person, nothing like that at all. All you are saying is that in the event of my death, the will is in security box, whatever, and this is the number. You can't go there by yourself without any permission. So then so what you write and the details of your will is nobody's business. Now, the unfortunate reality, whether you're in a small society or a big society, and you have your staff and everybody doing all sorts of things, everybody going and read and think they know a certain part of your will. Now, that goes according to the relationship that you have with your lawyer. You could come and say like this is something that is very personal to me. I don't want it going out. I actually know the receptionist, I know the other lawyer, I know the other lawyer. Can you please handle this matter personally? That's what you're paying them for. So they handle the matter personally, they draft, they print, you bring in your external witnesses to sign, acknowledging that you were the one who are the maker of the will. You fold it up, you seal it, and they give it to you.
And this information goes to property paid in full or properties that you're still paying for?
It's your property.
Regardless.
It's your property. As long as the title is in your name, it is your property.
Okay.
Yes, your property is subject to a mortgage. So you pass. Remember, I told you about the young couple who passed, right? And they just got a mortgage for their home. So now we would hope that they had some money to pay for it. Chances are they didn't, because they would not have taken a mortgage in the first place. But what they would have had was life insurance. So usually when you get a mortgage, you get life insurance. So you're dead today, the property is going to be paid for tomorrow. No banking going and lend you no money just like that, and next thing you walk down the road and dead. So yes, you leave it. Even if you have a mortgage, you still make provisions for it in the will because it is yours.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
My question is, if mother passed away and just leave maybe a land paper with your name and her name on, what happened to the others?
Well, tell the others, well, mommy loved you, but your name alone on the land, so it's yours.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Just a simple question. You mentioned once someone dies, that the account is seized.
Yes. It's not seized, but you are the only person who's signing, so you have nobody has accessed it.
If you're, I was wondering if it's a joint account.
Oh no, if it is a
different?
joint account, then all the money that is there automatically goes to the other account holder.
Okay.
It doesn't
And-
form a part of your estate or anything like that.
Okay. Is it, or is it wise, or is it possible that you can say if you have children, leave them as a beneficiary, not that they're on your account?
In
But
banks, they don't do beneficiaries.
I think credit union does.
Credit union. So if you leave, now let me tell you this, in the credit union, social security, and places where they say beneficiary, and you write down all and sundry, don't go by no lawyer and say, but you know I have this money in the credit union. The money in the credit union does not form a part of your estate, because during your lifetime you already made provisions for whomever would receive that money. So your children will get that money. There is no contest. They go with your death certificate. Please, they need to know where the money is. They go with your death certificate to the credit union. They're supposed to give them the money automatically.
Okay. And you also mentioned a deed and a title. What's
Yes.
the difference?
Well, a deed is where you have like 20 pages detailing the land was owned in 1974, then it was transferred to this one, then it was transferred to that one. So the entire chain of ownership is in that deed before it goes on to you. So you notice like some people land paper is like a book. So a certificate of title is just one paper. Now a certificate of title is what we call indefeasible title. So essentially means that whatever is written on the front of that title, whoever is the owner of that title, that is it. So with a deed with the chain where you have 10, 12 people before it get down to you, somebody in the middle there could say, oh, by the way, this wasn't transferred properly. And then they could go and check and see that there's a break in the chain, and all of a sudden this piece of land that you paid for is in question. A title, a certificate of title, there is no question.
In a case where you live in a household with,
Mhm.
in a case where you live in a household with 2 children, and you die, the property automatically goes to the children.
No, we don't know that. What was on the title is your property?
No.
When I say your property, meaning that the children living in the house, that's
Yes.
your children,
Yes.
right? So do you have a husband?
Yes.
No, well then is your husband will inherit?
If he dies, like
Well, then
everybody
when-
dies,
well, if he
everybody
dies- everybody just dead, well then yes. It
One
goes
at
to
a
the
time,
children.
One at a time, one at a time, you know.
Yes, but they are in line to inherit. And I keep on saying in line to inherit because on your title document itself, it will still have your name. So in order for them to take this gift now, because you didn't give it to them in a will, in order for them to take this gift, they will have to apply to the court for letters of administration without will annex. They have to establish the chain to say, this was my mother, she owned this piece of land with my father, the two of them passed, and now here am I, the rightful person according to law to have access to this property. So that is how they're going to get it.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for this informative presentation.
You're welcome.
I'm asking for a friend, a hypothetical friend. You know, like how you can go on the internet and download all these documents and so on.
Yes.
So can a friend go and download a document like a will,
Well,
a template?
Well, yes, a friend can.
Yes.
However,
And
yes, go ahead.
yeah, so she did that. She filled it out. She has a copy in her Bible. She has a copy on her phone. She would have sent it to her email. And then, before she could actually go to a lawyer and get it done, she passed. So is that legal or binding or valid?
As long as that will meet all the requirements of the jurisdiction. It was made, it was written,
Yes.
it was signed
Yes.
by the maker and two witnesses.
Okay.
And as long as it is done properly, because I don't know what it looks like, then yes, it is a valid will.
Okay, thanks.
You're
I'll
welcome.
tell her.
Please, but make sure and tell her still go and ask a lawyer a question, you know. Don't go and say, Kenya say.
A pleasant good afternoon good night to all.
Good night.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
First, I would like to thank you for this presentation.
You're welcome.
The first is, how much does it cost to withdraw someone's name from your will?
To withdraw the name?
Yes.
No,
Remove.
you just get a new will.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're not going to say, oh yeah, just scratch off this person's name here. And let me tell you something. The simpler and cleaner your will is, the better. You can't complicate the will by, okay, I have my will now. Then you go and get a piece of land. And then you say, all right, I want the piece of land added, but I don't want to be bothered with doing a new will. So there's this thing called a codicil, which is to say, like, you know, your will continues in this document, and you add that person. And then you get something else, and you go and you do another codicil. So sometimes when you see some people's will, the will big so. The same thing like the deed. Anything that goes wrong in any one of those codicils and it doesn't match back to your will, now you're going to risk invalidating your entire will. And the gift could fail, meaning like whatever you wanted to give to whichever person, because you didn't want to write over your will and you have this 50 pages of all sorts of things, then the whole will is invalidated and the law of succession steps in. So just get a new will.
Okay. And thank you. The second is, when the name is removed or added, the individual is not made aware of it, right?
No,
We would have
but
to-
why are you telling anybody what you're giving them anyway?
Okay.
If you want them to have something now, and this is something very important, you realize it's either you're old or you're sick, or just now you want to give somebody something, please give it to them now. You can have a house and you say, let me add all my children as joint tenants in common, however you want to do it now. It is cheaper. Don't tell any other lawyer that I said that. It is actually cheaper. It saves you so much because, I mean, like a will is, you have your will in all the instances that I give you. But you see, that example for Miss Mami, she not going and pay no lawyer to stress herself out because she knew that her assets were simple. So therefore, she knew she had a house. When she was getting down in age, she said, you see that special granddaughter? She's going to get the house. She matched herself over to a lawyer to make that facilitation. All of her money, anything else, joint account. As soon as she passed, nobody don't have to go and do anything. They go to the bank, they have access to the money. But that's for very, very simple. right? But if you're young and you have property and you acquiring more stuff, you get yourself a will. But you have to pay to play.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Okay, so if you have one child,
Yes.
your child, well, I have a daughter, and can I make a will for my estate that says something along the line, if she gets married, the property is passed on to her children? Can that be done?
But how you getting that?
I asking
Listen.
if I want to, okay, I get married, you say automatically your spouse become your legal, well, your next of kin, right? But remember to start with, the properties are mine,
Yes.
right? So can I decide that I want to will my property to my daughter, but in the event of her death and she's married, if she has a child, the property goes to the child, or don't I have a say after I have willed it to her?
In the event of the getting married part will get you in trouble. But this is your property, and you're going to say, I'm going to give it to my daughter. You're going to give it to your daughter. How? Meaning that you're going to give it to your daughter. Absolutely. If that is the case, then whoever she decides to give whatever she owns to, then you don't have any say. But if you give her a life interest, saying that you can live here for the rest of your lifetime, and upon your death, the property goes to your children, then that is how that you do it. Don't be writing your husband can't get nothing because I didn't like him and all them things.
She doesn't have a husband. I'm just she's actually listening and done message and asked me if I have a will. But the second question is, if you're married,
Yes.
and then you and your spouse break up, and you have been separated but not legally, and you die without a will.
So why are you going and give the man all your things? Because that is all that you're going to do there. This is
No matter how long you're separated for.
So who going and stand up and say, well, I was separated from my husband, when this man stand up, the rightful person, in order to inherit all of your estate, whether you ain't talking to him or not?
Okay. Okay. So what happens if your property is in, you're married, but
Yes.
all of your assets are in your maiden name?
Okay. So that means
Everything still goes to your spouse?
it's yours, and you got married, and you die. Yes. Unless you made another provision for that, then yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
So my question is similar to hers, but
Yes.
not legally separated, but divorced. Would that, you said when the lady gets married, it supersedes, right?
Yes.
So in a divorce case,
No, you are not connected to that person at all.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So still, you're not connected to them, but you still write and leave everything for them in the will. Please change it.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
One piece of land, a house on it.
Yes.
Peter want the land, Paul want the house. How that goes?
Now I know, you know that don't make no sense. Now it all depends, right? It all depends on the structure that is actually on the land. And then how the land what is. So there are some people who love to say, oh, this is the family house. Now that pains me to hear everybody say, when I die, I want this house to be the family house. And you have 10 children. So now you have 10 children. You know 9 of them not living in the house. You know very well there's only the one child who never move out and who stays the one who living in the house. But you go on and you write a will and talk about family will and family house and all my children. So then you will have that situation where somebody say, well, break down the house, let we do something else. The next one say, no, this is the house that we grew up in and I keep in mommy legacy, pure chaos. And then you know what going to happen? Nothing, because nobody can't agree. So everything, the house just rotten, and you could drive all through St. Kitts and see one set of family house, it not occupied. So this comes to proper planning. You must know. Now, again, this is not legal advice, but you must know the one child who will take care of that property. Give the property to that child. I'm suggesting.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I'm asking a question for a viewer.
Yes.
So her question is, I'm reading as is.
Yes.
If there is a will prepared years before you die, but one of the beneficiaries died 10 years before you died, what should happen in that case to the will / the portion of what was due to that deceased beneficiary?
Okay. So now I don't have the copy of the will, but in each will, it is always advisable to have a residuary clause. So that is after you say the house go to this one, the car go to that one, the property over here goes to somebody else. Then there is this one clause in the bottom that says, anything else that I would acquire in my lifetime, or if any of those gifts fail. So a gift failing meaning that the person that you were going to give it to died. Then in this last clause, it goes to, and you name whoever it is in your residuary clause. So the person who died, their gift falls in the residuary clause. So whoever name is in that last paragraph there, that is the person who's entitled to inherit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question from the same viewer.
Mhm.
Is it possible for a will to be in place and the executor not follow what was set out in that will? Is there a course of action that can take to rectify such case?
Of course. It is called contentious probate. So now you have your executor and you give them all this responsibility. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You charge them with fulfilling your wishes, which literally means to transfer out your assets in the way that you want it to be done. Some of them hope that if they don't say anything, that nobody will notice that they are acquiring the property in the will. So when you are there and you realize that this is happening, the first thing that you are going to do is march yourself to the courthouse and go and say, like, listen, this is contentious. When I say contentious, meaning that this gift is supposed to pass to me and the executor isn't doing what they're supposed to do. Now, the power of that executor is only based on what is in the will. They have no power outside of that. It's not going to stop some people from trying to see if they have more and say, oh, my name is here, so therefore I am in control. You don't like how that person is handling the estate, then you go and take them to court for them to comply with exactly what is written on the will. You see why it is important that this is your last will and testament. This is what you want. This is not what the executor wants or what anybody else wants. This is what you want.
Thank you. So
You're
those are the
welcome.
viewer questions. I have my own. They're very short, I think. Okay, the executor, is it advised that it should be a relative or
No.
could
No.
be?
It could be anybody that
Anybody.
you trust. 18 years and over, please.
Okay.
Don't be putting your children as your executor and they're under 18.
Okay.
But you want somebody who's responsible enough to handle your estate. And when I say handle it, remember you were going to say this person have to get that, that person have to get that. Once you have your will and you pass, your will must be probated, which means that it is the executor's responsibility to go and find a lawyer in order to go and have this will probated in the court. Right? So that person have to be somebody that is really responsible.
Another question, in the language of a will, like persons who might have a number of children,
Yes.
is it advised to be as specific as possible? For instance, if you have one house, if you have houses, then you might say in the will, I leave my houses to my children. Or can you, or is it advised to be as specific as possible? This house is for Johnny.
Please be specific.
Okay.
I just started to get this pain came all over me here. So just imagine being a lawyer and having to read this. I'm like, oh, there we go. What are we going to do with this now? Because let me tell you something. Everybody loves each other when the person who is making the will is alive. As soon as that person die and we cry and we eat the sandwich and the repast, everybody get bad because everybody's thinking that they're entitled to this and that and the other. So if you want to leave a gift, be very specific. You know you have 3, 4, 10 children, write their name and say, this is what this person gets. This is what that person gets. Be very specific because everybody's mommy best child.
And last question, you didn't specifically, or I don't know if you spoke to it, but what would you say, what would you advise about our living will? Like persons who, in the event they get ill and they're not able to make decisions, maybe or maybe not, they wrote a will.
But right, remember I said incapacitated or death. So now incapacitated, they have the will and the will is valid, but it only takes effect upon their death. So if you know that you're sick with something and you know that going further down where your mental health could be challenged, then you have to do something else. It's not just a will, but you want to say, I'm going to leave this in trust. That is the only document that is alive. I'm going to leave my property in trust for this person or that person. Now, a trust is that live gift, but it's extremely complicated, and I'm not going to just tell you it in a one go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Good evening. First of all, let me say, indeed, this is needed.
Okay.
Persons all over, they're looking and listening, and some are asking questions.
Yes.
As Christians, we tend to feel like we shouldn't think about death or even prepare for it. The first time I came across this was when I was studying psychology.
Yes.
And it was a rude awakening for me, because I never thought that I should even think of death. But it is important that we know certain things.
Yes.
I'm going to ask this question. Someone died 9 years ago, and something was written in the will. Let's say it was for me.
Yes.
But up to this time, nothing has happened. What should I do?
Challenge the executor. The gift didn't feel. It is still to you. So then what you have to do, and when I say challenge the executor, you get your lawyers involved and you write the executor and say, look, this is the contents of this will. This is the gift that must pass to me. So therefore I expect to receive it forthwith. And if they don't want to do that, then we take them to court. It is not theirs to hold. A gift is a gift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As a follow-up to this, if the
Yes.
executor has died, no, because I mean I'm talking about a
That's
real life
fine.
situation where the
Yeah.
executor died and the lawyer died.
Oh my gosh.
So what? I think there was another lawyer who was going to take over from the lawyer. So what do you do in terms of getting another executor? I mean, how do you
But-
handle that?
First of all, the lawyer dying is neither here nor there, rest in peace. But the executor, once the executor dies, the responsibility that the executor has falls as a part of the executor's estate. So the executor will, whoever is responsible for the executor's problem or the executor's estate and the handling of that, that is the person that have to continue all that the executor was supposed to do under the will. It's a big responsibility. Don't be rushing and saying you're going to be no executor for somebody and you know you're going on dead tomorrow. No, okay. People die. So then once that person died, who is the person who is responsible for the executor's estate? Was the executor married? Did the executor have children? They are the ones who will have to pick up the mantle. Or you totally stuck. Then we go to court. And then you ask for a change. Yeah. No. I find out I love to give away property, but carry on.
Good night.
Good night.
I was watching online and I had to come.
Yes.
How do you know who the executor, if the person died and didn't tell the family that they had a will?
Oh gosh. So there's no will?
There's a will, but nobody knows about the will.
No, but then there's no will. The reason why I'm saying that, if you write a will and you go on and you hide that will somewhere and you neglected to mention to anybody that this will exist, for all intents and purposes, there is no will.
Suppose a plane crash and you and the person, well, the person who they told died the same time.
Everybody just did.
Yes.
So then that means that you don't have a will. Because if we can't find it, remember you still have an estate. So then, for all intents and purposes, you die intestate.
So there's nothing in the court, the wills don't go.
But what are we going in the court and do?
No,
all right. So just remember, your will is still something personal, right? So that is why you are the one charged with the responsibility for keeping it safe and letting other people know where it is and that type of thing. So if everybody with this knowledge did, so the persons who potentially be in line to inherit, they have to go and say, well, mommy or daddy died without a will. So then that means that daddy and mommy died intestate. So then you go and the property is distributed according to the law of succession.
Okay. So I have 4 children. I have 4 properties. How do I get my children's name to the property and still have access to have them as collateral?
Never do that. First of all, as long as your children are under 18 years of age, and you know that you have this piece of land and you want to go and get mortgage, or you want to secure, or you want to do anything that you want to do with it, you will not be able to do anything with that property as long as those children's name are on it, up and until those children are 18 years old. So I see a lot of people, if you know you're going to do nothing, by all means, go ahead and write your children's name on a title. You know you're going to use it, don't bother with that. Wait until you finish, do all the things that you have done, and then you add their name.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Question, I witnessed something at hospital one time.
Yes.
This
Your
guy,
life is very exciting.
This guy came in and tried to get somebody to sign a name when the person was about to die. Is that legal?
No, it isn't legal at all, and people always do that. I can't imagine, like, you are a lawyer and you sit down and you write this and everybody's going and you're seeing Tanti hand going like this and then you holding her hand and writing. But yes, it happens. But it is not legal, and that is a fraudulent will, as long as somebody could prove it.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, my mother, husband passed away, but he willed the property to her. And she wanted to will back the property to me. But when I checked the land certificate, you have 3 names on it. What must I do?
Who's them 3 names? So how is it your mother's husband, thank you, how is it your mother's husband was willing away property and his name not on it?
I don't know how she get it though. I don't know how they get it but I just saw it.
Well, okay, let me tell you how it works. If, that's why I remember the first thing I said, you have to know what you own. So sometimes your name, like let's say your mother would have left you property and she would have left you with the name of your other sisters or brothers on the property. You have to see how the property is held. So for instance, if the property is held as a joint tenant, then that means that one by one, as you all die, the last surviving person is the actual owner of the property. So you need to perhaps check to see if the people whose name is on the title is still alive. And then if your dad's name, or your mother's husband's name is the only the only name left, when I say the only name left, the only person left alive, then that property belongs to him. Then he could have passed it to her, and then she could pass it to you. But there's a lot of things that need to be done, like the will need to clean up. She needs to get, the title need to clean up. She needs to get the title transferred from your father to her, then she could leave it to you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for your very informative presentation.
You're welcome.
There's a question from online. The person asks, if someone has been in a relationship for over 15 years, a common law marriage, would the estate automatically go to the partner? If either dies, are the children of both persons entitled to a share?
Common law where in St. Kitts? The reason why I'm saying that is that common law relationships are recognized in certain countries. If in the jurisdiction that it is recognized, then, and they qualify to be a common law wife, then the property will go to them. If they're in a jurisdiction where common law relationships are not recognized, then the person will be seen to have died without a wife, and they have children, so therefore the property, the children are in line to inherit. So you could be living with your man or your woman all these years and never bother to get married, and wake up one morning and your children are entitled to inherit the assets and you have to sleep at the side of the road. Please get married.
Good evening, miss.
Good evening.
I'm a visitor.
Welcome.
I can't believe I paid $150 to a lawyer back home.
You see, look at freeness.
My question is, if we just spit in our set of scenarios at US.
Of course.
What if someone has a will, but it cannot be found?
Yes.
Let's say $100,000, my wife got it, she spent it, but 3 years later the will is found. What happens? Does she have to pay it back, or?
What that have to do with Shane?
No?
According to the law, they died intestate because nobody found this will, right? And then the court would say, well, okay, there is no will, stamp, stamp, stamp. This is the gift, and this is how it's supposed to pass according to the laws of succession. Well, will you find, tell them thanks for showing you it, but the money is yours.
It's no longer legal.
You didn't thief it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Good
Just 2-3 questions.
Mhm.
How, you said at age 18 you can do a will.
Yes.
Is there age limit to how old you are you can make a will?
No.
And if there is, let's say the person is 90 plus or whatever, and there is the possibility of a disability of memory and speech, is that an issue when making a will?
Oh, that's a big issue. Because remember, you must be of sound mind.
How do you prove, and whose responsibility is to prove that the person is of a sound mind? Is it the lawyer who is in the will, or is it someone else? And because sometimes it's challenged after the will.
That is it. It have to be challenged after. So unless you don't have any knowledge of this will from before, the only time you are going to know that this will pops up is on the death of the person. So once you find that out now, you believe, right, because it's your belief, that there's no way that Granny could have possibly signed this because at the time she was incapacitated, then that is the challenge. You are challenging the entire validity of the will based on the fact that she did not have testamentary capacity, meaning that she was not of sound mind. Somebody losing the memory can't be writing a will.
But if there is no official test, examination by a professional, and the person goes to a lawyer or is taken to a lawyer's office to do a will, what
But
happens?
how do we know that Granny losing she mind? She must have gone to the doctor at some point, even if she joined a clinic and some doctor say, well, listen, Granny suffering from Alzheimer's. Then that is the doctor that you will have to go back to, because how are you going to establish it? Because there are certain 90-year-olds who are vibrant and active.
Correct.
So if the person is making the allegation that she was not of sound mind or he was not of sound mind, then they will have to prove it. And medical records do that.
So the person's challenging has to prove.
Of
that
course,
the
he who
was-
alleges must prove.
So they need documents to do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the storage of the will, executor, safety deposit, lawyer, banker.
Anywhere that is safe.
Sometimes in these parts of the world, people give a pastor, a priest,
Of course.
the will to hold, and be executor as well. Just that sometimes, when they give a priest and the priest is transferred to a different district, and the time between when the person dies and the probating of the will, or people find out where the will is, time has gone, and the person may have to fly back to this district to execute the will. What happens in that situation where certain parts of the will is missed because of the time frame when the executor was informed of the deceased?
So what is missed? Because, I mean, the executor went about his business. First of all, the role of the executor wasn't given to the church, it was given to the pastor. So whether the pastor goes to the ends of the earth, they will have to come back. It is their responsibility to deal with the estate. However, if you're saying that they did not know what happened because they didn't know, the estate just languished, or somebody said, oh, there was no will, so therefore let us go ahead and deal with this as if the person died intestate.
No, in reference to the burial and the debts remain or stuff like that, the initial things that may have been needed to be addressed, but because of the executor being away and not knowing that the person died, and also to probate the will, as well as who pays for that person's travel expenses.
Who pays for the person's travel expenses? It comes from the estate. So you give the executor that responsibility. If I have to fly back from Timbuktu to mind your business, it is going to come at a cost to you. So whatever is a part of the estate, because the first thing in your will is that you have to pay all of the debts that the will maker has before you start distributing gifts.
And how do you know the debts?
Well, you have to find out.
You have to find out the debts before. So there's a time period between
what time period? So
finalizing the will and the distribution of the funds in reference to finding out the debts the person may have.
What has been the quintessential Caribbean problem is that you want to make sure that your will takes care of your burial, and that will not work. You must have some money and let somebody have access to that money, because there are burial plans, like I don't know if credit union will say come bury you, whatever, and then you just let people know and you go and get the burial money. There is insurance, you could do that. These are taking care of the immediate expenses in terms of disposing of your body. If you leave that in the will, now just remember, you could read this will here, but that still doesn't give me access to your money in the bank, because it could take up to a year to have a will probated. Now, I know nobody not going to have nobody sitting on ice for an entire year to bury you until this will probated. So which would mean essentially is that you put that responsibility on your family to find money to bury you, like if you ain't have none, and then we go and probate the will and get the money to pay back everybody else who maybe by that time don't forget already.
Okay, my final question is this. You said will can change. You can change the will any time.
Yes.
If someone changes the will over a period of 15 years, 3 times, 3 different persons have the will, 3 different executors.
Yes.
But the first one, after the person dies, probates the will.
So what happened to the last one?
What happens to the other 2 who may have been slow or not knowing that there were actual 2 wills before? What happens there?
The last will and testament is the last one that you would have made. So if the first one went and say, well, this is what I thought was the last one, then you can't blame the executor for that. However, everything else, if the gifts were different and there were different people under the other will, then there is cause to challenge.
There will be different. It's different.
Of course.
But how do you prove? The first one may say, but I didn't know that there were 2 others.
But that's not the executor problem. That's because you didn't make up your mind, and when you decided to have 10 wills, you're supposed to tear up the others from before.
Yeah, but the other 2, they don't know that there were other wills.
Yeah, but right, so that is your responsibility as the person who making 10, 15, 20 wills. Every time you go and tell the executor, oh yeah, this is the will, and you didn't remember to say, you are not the executor anymore, let me go get myself a new will. So now 2 things come to my mind. Is either the last person write that will for themselves and we hold Tanti hand and make she sign in the hospital, or the first will is valid. So, there is this dispute that lawyers love.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Concerning, you said something about the executor responsibilities passed on to his estate.
Yes, but that means that this is your task. So if you die mid-task, right, who going and do it? You have to find somebody to do it. So that responsibility that you have goes, when I say that goes to your estate, meaning that what you would have had, say like you have your will or whatever, let's say you name some executor there, you'll say like, oh, by the way, this is what this man was supposed to do under here, so come please fix this.
But that's in the event that the person who made the will is deceased?
Well, we will hope that they did.
Oh, just hoping. No, when you said it, I was wondering, well, if the executor died, the person is alive, all they got to do is get a new executor.
Remember, the will is only activated upon the maker's death.
Okay. Just being certain. Okay, you also spoke about lifetime interest. When someone was asking a question about the lifetime interest.
Yes.
And then in that way, the child enjoys it for their lifetime, and then it passes to
the grandchild.
The grandchildren.
Yes.
So, in that case, the spouse doesn't benefit at all.
How the spouse getting that?
Okay, just making sure to.
Because remember, this is a gift that was given to me, but it was only given to me for my lifetime. So this is not saying, well, oh, all right, I pass, so let we go and start a fight. If once I die, it goes to the next person. So it's just a lifetime gift.
Okay. That clears it up. What is the difference between joint tenants and tenants in common?
I love that you asked that, because it irks me to know and that people don't know this. Okay, now a joint tenant, it means 2, 3, 4, 10 persons on it. But what happens is that you hold the land together. So for instance, I own the land outright and my name is on it. You own the land outright because your name is on it. And the right of survivorship applies. So the two of us just sitting and waiting to see who dead first. And then as the person who survives, own the entire property. Now with this, once you have joint tenancy, one person, even though you own the entire thing, you cannot do anything else without the other person. So now a tenant in common means that I own a share of that property. So I don't own the whole thing. So I own 60, 40%, 50, 50, whatever share it is listed that you are owned as a share, equal shares, however they want to term it, as tenants in common. So what this means now is that 2, 3 of us are on this property, and I decide, listen, I need some money, I am going to sell my share. I can sell my share, and you are stuck with whoever else I sell it to. That's your business if you didn't want to sell yours. Or you didn't want to buy it from me. So that is the difference. And then if I die as a tenant in common, I could write my will, and then I can will this, I can gift this to somebody else. Joint tenants can't do that, because once a joint tenant dies, the survivors inherit automatically.
So, tenants in common, how does that work with a house? If you could sell your share?
What do you
Selling
mean?
your share to somebody else?
Well, that's your
To
business.
move in the house with me?
They're moving and live with you comfortable. So that's why I tell people, because some people like to say, oh, I'm going to leave this for my children in equal shares and all this fanciness. You have to understand what the term means and what it means for the person that you're gifting it to. Because you think you go in and give them this wonderful gift, and next thing you give them this burden, see me and 10 people living together and all this sort of nonsense, and I can't do anything about it. So you have to know what you own and how you're going to pass it on to that person.
Just a comment, when you were talking about beneficiaries, you mentioned Social Security. Beneficiaries do not apply to Social Security.
What are you talking about?
Beneficiaries do not apply
to
Social Security.
Let me be clear, because there are Social Security, different types in different countries. When I say beneficiaries, so for instance, you have a pension plan, or you have your Social Security, maybe not here, and you could go and you write down somebody's name to go and get your money in the event of anything, so it doesn't form as a part of your estate. So it's not just this is your Social Security, I will just sign over the right. It is signing over whatever benefit that you would have gotten. So let's say like you would have gotten like a pension plan of how much ever money, and this is the balance of the money, and like in the credit union you could give that. You could also give that if that is available to you. So you just ask that question.
Okay, for St. Kitts Nevis Social Security purposes, beneficiaries do not apply.
Well, don't write
this
a
will
name.
probably be a whole another session, but what happens is that once you die,
yes,
whoever was responsible for, even if you have someone, you have my name written down, but Sister Avenel buries you, she's the one who gets the funeral grant. If you have a spouse, then your spouse can claim children under 16,
This is
then
what
they
I'm
can
talking
claim.
about. This is what you make mention to. This is your funeral money. So now in certain banks, right, as well as how you make that mention there, you don't have access to anybody's personal funds, but certain banks make allowances to say that, okay, this person died, here's their death certificate, I know for certain they have money in the bank will make the determination however they come up with it and say, okay, I'm going to allot $5,000 toward funeral expenses. This is all that you're going to have access to, and you could only access anything else once you get your will probated or you do letters of administration. So that is the benefit that Social Security offers. So they're going to, so you same procedure, you carry it down and say, oh, by the way, Auntie dead and we need money to bury her, and they're going to give you access to that. So that is the planning aspect of that part. That is just making provision for the disposal of your body.
Okay, understand what you were saying now.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for this wonderful session.
You're welcome.
Getting lots of questions from online viewers.
Oh, wow. Everybody wants to know. Tell them, please come see me at my office.
Exactly. So the question is, the first question you answered, but they have a question related. If an old will can be registered in a probate court instead of a new will,
If a probate, it could be registered in a probate court.
if an old will can be registered in a probate court instead of a new will.
You mean if you had two wills and the
that's-
one, the first will?
Yeah, that's related to the question that they asked before. Is it possible for a
Yes, it
will
is.
to be?
Yes, it is possible. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is a system. Now, I'm not going to know everybody within the community. You make the proper application, you have your will annexed, and you submit all your documents into the court. No judge not going to know you had 10 wills. So then they're going to look at this will that is presented, they're going to see that this will is valid, and they're going to probate it on that basis. So if you come with a will later in time, which is the actual last will and testament, then you have to take other steps in order to challenge it.
And then another question they're asking, can one inherit from a deceased insurance, and is it separate from the will? And this is someone living
That
overseas.
answer is twofold. So now you have an insurance. Normally, they ask you who is your beneficiary. A lot of people leave their children, they leave their spouse. Note, if you put your spouse name, you can't take it off. And some people, they say that your beneficiary, because you must follow that, it goes to your estate. So as long as the insurance policy goes to your estate, then yes, it forms as a part of your will, and then it can be given in any way that you determine, because you didn't do that before.
Okay. And their final question, is it mandatory that a person be informed about a will, whether they stand to inherit?
Of course. So how am I going to give you the gift? Sit down there and keep it a secret and hope you notice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question from a friend.
Okay. You are real friends.
They want to know, they were inherited a property by the deceased father
Yes.
via a will, and they want to know if they can, well, it's a houses,
Yes.
so they want to know if they can live in one of the vacant houses, because
what?
they're under 25, and the will said they have to be 25, but
Well, that's what the will says. You have
So
to
they
sit
have to
down,
wait
sit down
until-
home by mommy and wait until you're 25 and then move
and the
in.
house empty, and
Well, that is all your problem. Now, let me tell you something. And this goes, again, according to what you draft in your will. Some people come up with all sorts of ridiculous requirements and stipulations, but it is theirs to give. So then you just respect the wish and you sit down there and you wait until you're 25. What you're doing living outside a home and you're not 25 anyway, unless you're going to school.
well, okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Another online viewer.
Yes.
How long does the letter of administration take?
Oh, it depends on the system. And when I say the system, meaning like literally, you go according to the probate court schedule. So it can take, like smaller estates take a little bit more time, but I will not put my foot in my mouth to go and tell you will get that back in 3 months. You might get it back in a year. It depends on how complicated the estate is and where you fall in the totem pole. That is why I'm saying, if you have to get buried or dispose of your body in whatever way you see fit, do not put the money in the will.
Okay, another question. If the husband, say the husband passes away,
Yes.
if the husband never leaves a will but has someone's name on the account, can the wife remove that person's name from the account and close it?
Well, how's she getting that? Essentially, as long as there's somebody else's name on that will, it does not fall, on the account, it does not fall as a part of her husband's estate. So whoever's name is on there, that is their money.
Okay. How much does it cost to do a will?
Oh, it all depends on what you're putting in that will.
Okay.
The will could be 1 page, the will could be 10,000 pages.
Okay, and then final question.
But a simple will in St. Kitts is $750.
If two people's names are on a property,
Mhm.
do both persons have to write the will together?
Well, people, like especially husbands and wives, I should have brought up that, let us hold hands and sing kumbaya and let us write a will together. That don't make no sense. Well, I should not say that. Usually you have to think about how it is going to work, right? So let's say you own the house jointly. So you own the house as joint tenants. So if I die, you inherit. If whoever dies first inherits, right? So what you could do, the husband could have a will and say, in the event that you die before me and this house is mine, then it goes to the children and vice versa. So, if you have joint stuff, you leave it like that. But you see the two of us with the will, don't complicate your life.
Okay, because they were asking if each person can will it to whomever he or she prefers.
You could will what you own, not what you don't own. So if the two of us holding it together, and then again, this is something that the two of you all have to come together and say, this is what we want to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This discussion is getting very interesting.
I know.
People are sending in questions.
Okay.
A scenario. A mother and father live together.
Yes.
But they were not married.
Oh gosh.
And they had one child.
Mm-hmm.
And the couple broke up. And the mother went away, and the child stayed with the dad.
Mm-hmm.
So the child lived with the dad for over 20 years.
Yes.
And he made a will, fortunately.
Okay.
And he left the property for that child.
Yes.
Who is living in the house with him.
Mm-hmm.
But he went out and he had another child during the time. So the child's mother, on his death, the child's mother is claiming, right,
What's she claiming?
that the child, that second child, must get a part of the estate.
Why? Did he make that provision for that child?
The will.
The only time that you have that, remember, this challenge comes about and the line falls, is when you don't have a will. Because you could have 10 children and still leave the house to one child. So it's not everybody could come and say, oh, by the way, this was mommy and mommy would have wanted me. If mommy wanted that, she would have written that in her will. And it's the same thing in that scenario there.
Right. And so the bank account does not have the will. The bank account is not on the will.
Okay. So and there is money in the bank account. So then that aspect of it, if you don't have a residuary clause, so maybe that person have to go and read the will again. Because even if you didn't make specific mention of a bank account, if there's a residuary clause to say all the money that I have or the money that I may come into in my lifetime goes to such and such a person, then that is the person in the bottom there who will inherit. If not, then that aspect of the estate, then you could say that the maker of the will was intestate for that aspect. And then the laws of succession will take place, fall in, and then you go according to all 10 children will have to get some money.
Okay, so, all right, thanks.
You're welcome. We spend any night.
This is a very long question.
Okay.
asking for a friend. When this person's father died, he left 3 children with the person's mother. They were never married. And not sure if they were recognized as common law husband and wife. The father never had a will, but the person was told that their father had property, land with a house built on it, but it was never claimed by his mother. Person has seen the property and has tried to locate the property papers via the family members on his father's side, but no luck. He also tried looking through the court's library, but also no luck. So his questions are, who does this property now belong to?
Well, we don't know how the property was held at all. So he still need to find whatever title document that this property contains. And if you can't find it at the court, let's say you're not searching properly or you just literally don't know, the family members don't know, then perhaps a surveyor will know. Now let me tell you, surveyors are really, really good in the jurisdiction. They must know at some point they did cut land for somebody. So they can tell you the history around it, or if they know the houses around the property, right? Then you could have an idea and you look at their title, because you can. You go in the registry and say you pull up somebody else's title and you see the boundaries, then you could find where that house is or where does it belong, and then you go back to do your search again to find it. But you can't say who the property belongs to if you have no idea how it was held.
Okay, because he's asking also what are the steps in getting the deed or ownership of the property, because the person has been dead for 34 years.
Step number 1, he needs to get himself a lawyer. No, it's serious, because it's a very complicated problem that he has, and it requires work. So it's not just to say, you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. You need like proper instructions in order for me to tell you exactly what to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How does the power of attorney work with the will?
Power of attorney. Now, a power of attorney and a will is 2 totally different things.
Okay. For instance,
Yes.
can somebody with power of attorney create a will?
Power of attorney. Create who will? The only person who is creating a will is the person who has something to give. So you cannot create a power of attorney on behalf of someone.
Okay. So now once you answer that,
Yes.
so you had a will.
Mhm.
Now that person who you give power of attorney, do they
The
have?
executor, that's what you're talking about.
They might not be the executor,
So who have power of attorney?
but you might, because
So you give somebody power of attorney.
they're now incapacitated.
Okay.
So they
Oh,
can't-
so you give them that person power of attorney to handle your affairs.
Your affairs.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So can that person shift assets under the will?
But no, they can't do anything under the will. The person's still alive?
Yes.
No, what they do in that will is of no
With-
use until you're
with
dead.
I'm asking as if the person is making that request, but they're incapacitated to make
why-
those changes themselves.
No, they're not. They're asking, who's asking to make the
So-
change?
I'm looking at it from the person
Who lying down on the
actually
bed?
yes.
So they want to make that change?
Yeah, they might be able to speak, but
So
not
how are we
write.
going on determine? Or they could speak, but they're not writing.
Writing, yeah.
Okay, but then yes, you can make the new changes. The person is of sound mind.
Well, that would
We
have
would
to go
hope
to
so.
I wouldn't know. I'm
No,
just
because as
asking.
long as you are of sound mind, remember you still have the requirements for signing the will. Remember I keep on joking and saying everybody holding Tanti hand and you could actually sign a will with your thumbprint.
Okay.
But you must be of sound mind. Okay. Good night.
Thank you so much. Your presentation was wonderful.
You're welcome.
First thing, when I heard, what's it called now, estate planning, what came to my mind was, real estate,
Yes.
how you develop your estate, you sell, you buy, and all that stuff. But yeah, I got the clarification now.
Yes.
Estate planning is basically transfer of assets from one person legally.
Yes.
So my question is this, basically. Let's say you have a young couple, right?
Yes.
And then they had this accident, unfortunately. So they had young children, and then you have an executor
Yes.
that you assigned your stuff to. Okay, so is there a way to monitor and evaluate this executor, in the scenario where, how people are sometimes, they may not really take care of those children the way you would want your children to be taken care of?
But then somebody will have to challenge that. Meaning that, now just remember, the executor is not the one who you're giving the responsibility for your children, The executor, you're giving responsibility to handle the estate. So if in the estate you assign guardianship to somebody, and then somebody notices that these children are not being taken care of, then you have family court, you have all sorts of things to challenge what is happening to make sure that in the best interest of the children.
Oh, okay. So basically, you need to have somebody else in the scenario that
Well,
can
of course, because
monitor.
unless we're going to say, I don't like how they're taking care of the children from heaven, somebody has to say it.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
I don't know if you already talked about this, but if you and somebody else, I want you, you're in my will, and I'm in your will,
Yes.
so you have your things, I have my things, and I die first, you get everything. That's okay?
Yes. That's totally fine. But you're going to do it till you're done dead already. So if you decide that you're going to give it to somebody, then a will is the best way to give it.
No, because you never know who could die first, so.
Oh, but that is another important thing. That's an important question. So you see how husband and wife like to hold hands and say, oh, we own this jointly or whatever, and the two of you die. So you have to say, in the event that I die before you or you die before me, the two of us dead, somebody else, you name somebody else to inherit what you have. Oh, wow, you're all fresh out of questions. But thank you very much for having me.
Wow. Great. I realized you did not even sit down. It was we provided you with a seat, but the seat was too hot. But indeed, this was rather timely and amazingly, persons, even who were not here, wanted to know. Some of you sitting right there are afraid to ask questions as well. But anyway, we learned quite a bit, and I'm very grateful for what we learned tonight. And lawyer Kenya Blake Gordon. Yes, I'm sure he probably is watching. I'm like, if she does not call that name, that's unforgivable. But we are grateful to have you as part of our partnership, as partner in this house, and such wealth of information. Now, she has given this freely, so moving here forward is not freely again. You're not going to pull her back every time you see her and pull her in a corner to ask something. She's kind, but we still have to understand that's how she lives. She's a lawyer. Kindly stand. Tomorrow we are here for Power Encounter, and we are grateful for what God is doing even in the season of prayer. And we were reminded that we pray with the 4 eyes. Can you remember them? What was the first one? Imploring God. Also, imploration, second. Intercession, third. Interception, and fourth. Instruction. Very good. So last evening when we had that rain coming, and some persons were like, I don't think we're going to have this again. I went into instruction. And I said, rain, listen to me. I don't want you here, you know. Stay over there. If you want to stay over in Nevis, I'm sorry. Stay over there, but not here. We need this movie, and we are going to come here. So stay over there. You hear me? In Jesus' name. And I'm telling you, things cleared up. And that rain stuck over there. And when we said the end, then we started feeling the drizzle. And it allowed us to clear up the place, and we did clean up and everything. I said, wait till we reach home. And when I got home, just heard the rain, I said, thank you, Lord. Instruction. So we now know there's sometimes we would have to do that prayer of instruction. Amen? So we come back here, and it's a powerful time of prayer. Some of our men would be outside putting up the tent as we prepare for Vacation Bible School coming up on Monday to Friday. Those of you who can come and help in whatever way you can, come and make yourself available. If you can do whatever, talk to Pastor Tina, whatever her team set out, and we are going to have a wonderful time as we impart into our children's life, the children of our nation, because it's not going to just be persons from our church we will have, and we are feeding them. Wow. I'm telling you, we are doing a lot of things, you know. To think of it, we have something for you to eat, but you have to buy it, though, tonight. We have something outside, just something, a little refreshment. I actually forgot. But yes, be reminded. I think it's going to be, you know, affordable. All right, so let's pray. Father, we're indeed grateful for this opportunity that you have given to us. Father, for the wealth of information. We ask your blessings upon this woman of God and even her family, her husband. Bless him over there in Jamaica and keep him safe. And keep her, Lord God. And continue to do your work in her life. We give you honor and praise for this gift. We come in so many different packages, and we thank you for what you're doing in her life. Bless your people as we go forth, Lord. We thank you for taking us safely to various homes. And Father, bringing us back here. We thank you for the grace of the Holy Spirit with us. We thank you, Lord God, that you're helping us to be more wiser. You said in your word, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We give you honor and praise because you're good, God. In Jesus' name we pray. God bless you, and you may go outside.
My Jesus,